Are you hungry for the usual?
Good morning, everybody. Jim Feist and Hank Goldberg here in Las Vegas. Congratulations, Hank. I know you had Washington in that series. That looked really good, and I know you cashed a big ticket.
Yeah, well, I had a good price on it. You know, Washington was the hottest team in baseball the last 2 months. And, you know, they had won 8 or 9 straight games coming into the playoffs. And I like to get on teams that are hot and stick with them. I'll tell you, Houston was outscored in 2 road games, 14-4. And the Yankees pitchers are rested. And it would, you know, Verlander, you know, pitched out of, you know, on 3 days rest, which wasn't a smart thing to do with him. But they didn't kill Tampa Bay, and the Yankees did pretty well against Tampa Bay this year, if you're looking at comparisons. And you know, this, you know, Houston might be in for a tough series.
Well, I hope it's a 7-game series. I love watching baseball playoffs. It's exciting. I'm really looking forward to these first matchups, and they're getting their feet wet. But I think both series could go 7 games. Really do, 6 or 7.
I don't think the St. Louis Washington series is going 7 games. I think Washington gets off to a good start. I like their first pitching matchup. St. Louis's bullpen has not been too steady. They've blown a lot of games late. They got some good veteran players on that team. But I think Washington's on fire right now, and they're playing with confidence. And I just like their chances. I'll take Washington in 6.
Okay, I'll go along with that. That last game where St. Louis beat Atlanta, turned the game on like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I turned the game on 10 minutes late, and it was already 10-0. It was in the first.
Yeah, I had the over in that game.
Oh my God!
It was over fast.
Like the first 5 minutes, it was over.
Yeah.
Crazy. We got the big college card this weekend and a lot of pro games. What did you think of that game last night with the Giants and Patriots?
Well, I don't think the Patriots, when they start playing some good teams, are going to be as great as people think, although they have a really good defense, no question about that. But they played against a rookie. Belichick is now 12-0 at home against rookie quarterbacks. And but the defense for the Giants gave New England a hard time. Brady played okay in the second half at times, but he also threw a couple of picks. And I think that with the injuries they have, now they're talking about bringing Gronk back, and Gronk indicated on his debut with Fox last night that he doesn't he's not negative totally to the idea of coming back. He'll see how he feels. They need him. They're down. But by the way, they got some injuries last night that could slow them down when they start playing some of the better teams. So I think New England is a team that I'm going to go against when it gets later in the season. I don't like what I'm seeing there.
No, and there seem to be, and I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. First of all, they play a very soft schedule, which they always seem to because they play in a weak division. But the issue when they got rid of Ben Watson, it didn't seem to sit very well with Brady.
Well, they don't have any tight ends right now. You know, they got they have one healthy tight end, I believe, and they need to protect him. And you know, he got hit a few times last night. The Giants' defense isn't very good, and the Giants' defense, you know, the scores that New England had came on a blocked punt and an interception on defense. And that's happened before with New England, where a lot of their scores have been set up by their defense.
Yeah, it was a much higher scoring game than I anticipated, and a lot of that did come from turnovers and unforeseen things. You can't predict turnovers, but there's some.
Well, I mean, you were right as far as the low score was concerned, because the total was like 42 and a half, and they wound up scoring 45 in the game, and I think 3 scores came on defense in the game, on either between the two sides.
Yeah, it was one of those fluky type things. We got a big game this week, a couple big games this week. You got the London game, which is an interesting game. We got a division rivals there with Carolina and Tampa, and that's a 6:30 in the morning start for us here in Vegas, Hank, which is always interesting. And then you got the Chiefs, who had a tough time with Indianapolis, hosting now Deshaun Watson and the Texans. That to me is an interesting game too, because a lot of people look at teams like the Chiefs, which is a good team that has had some injuries, teams that underperform to bounce back if they're talented, and that is certainly a talented club. But Texans are not that weak. You can't and then of course you got Cleveland, who was totally embarrassed on Monday Night Football, not coming back in a short week to host Russell Wilson in Seattle. Seattle isn't the greatest team out there, but Russell Wilson makes them a much better team than they really are, and but that matters, and he does that. You got Pittsburgh with their third-string quarterback going out the Chargers. That's a interesting matchup. I mean, the Chargers just look absolutely awful. I mean, I think they ran the ball last week for under 50 yards in that game. I don't know how you do that.
Well, when you say that's an interesting game, that's like that game is between two teams that have like 3 wins between them. And it's what's interesting about it is what game is finished for the team has been finished for the year. There's so many more interesting games than that. And the Chargers Phillip Rivers is not playing well, and they've got all kinds of injuries. And you don't know if Pittsburgh's quarterback, Rudolph, is going to be able to play or not. He's practicing, but he's in the concussion syndrome. Well, I write that game off as an interesting game. I think they're 2 junk teams right now. When you talk interesting games this week, certainly the London game is interesting. Green Bay, Detroit is interesting. Denver, Tennessee, then is Denver on the way back. The Rams, San Francisco is a huge game. Minnesota, Philadelphia is a huge game. Jacksonville, New Orleans is a huge game. And the Dallas need to come back. Those are the marquee games this week. I've been calling around. I talked to people in New Orleans, and they're very leery about this game. They acknowledge the fact that their quarterback has done everything they've asked him to do, Bridgewater. Now they're going up against a strong defense in a very tough place to play, and they're reluctant to show a lot of confidence going to Jacksonville. They're very nervous about this game. I talked to the Cowboys people. Woods is going to come back on defense. That's big for them. They may get the right tackle back. He has been not practicing more because of illness than because of the injuries this week, and they're hopeful that they may have him. And their other linebacker, who had a bad game last week, he's had illness and has missed some practices this week. So, but they go in against the Jets team that gets their quarterback healthy, back from the mono. But they have 39 points this year. Of course, their only touchdown on offense came when he played the first week. Their offensive line is brutal. They don't have their tight end. He's out now. They've got a lot of injuries on their defense. is bad. And then I also spoke with what other teams? I really called around a lot to find out some things about some games. But Dallas is hoping to get at least a couple of their guys back, which will help them a lot going against a lower tier team. The Rams, I don't think you can count on Gurley, and even if he plays, they can't count on him. And this is a game where, San Francisco has injuries in their blocking. 2 tackles, who they count on, and their fullback are all out this week. And there's pressure on Garoppolo. Although Garoppolo is 12-2 as a starter, but he's going to have to do a little more than normal this week, although they have a lot of speed. But I talked to the Bosa family. Very interesting. They love Nick loves the guys he's playing with. Their defensive front 7 is probably as good as anybody's right now. It's not just about Bosa, although he had a great game last week. By the way, his best friend is the quarterback for LSU. And he says that's the best quarterback coming out this year.
Oh, he is good.
Which is interesting.
He is good. Very good.
But anyway, I think San Francisco's counting on their defense this year. I gave out a stat on golf on ESPN that in his last 12 games, he has thrown 15 interceptions, thrown 14 touchdown passes, and he's lost 12 fumbles.
Wow.
That's pretty dismal. He is not the same quarterback he was in the year before last year's championship game. And he's kind of crumbled and knuckled under. He's not the same guy for some reason. And without the running game, and they're having him throw the ball, over 50 times a game. And I'm beginning to wonder about that coach if he's not panicked a little bit.
Well, the Rams have not been running the ball like they did last year, and you brought that up. And their defense is a lot weaker than it was a year ago. They're not performing.
Well, their corners are bad. And Talib, by the way, probably won't play this week. But he and Peters have been bad. They've been giving up a lot of big plays, a lot of chunk plays. And they were considered to be the strength of their defense, as opposed to San Francisco, who, besides their front 7, have excellent cover guys as their corners.
Well, you mentioned, and this is interesting, I think we should talk about, you mentioned that San Francisco has key injuries. And offensive tackle Joe Staley is out. We knew that, though. That happened a while ago. And wide receiver Trent Taylor, he is out.
But they don't miss him. They got plenty of depth there. But their right tackle is out. So that means there are 2 starting tackles, and their fullback, who's been a big part of their offense, is out. That's 3 key injuries on their offense. But they use this coach is so smart. He uses their tight ends to help out with the pass protection. He loads up on extra tight ends to give some help to the tackles who are playing. But Kittle, George Kittle, who has been a big part of their offense, is now going to have to stay back and help with the blocking. So that changes their offenses. But they've got plenty of speed with the running backs in the running back area. And so they're going to be used, I think, a lot catching passes out of the backfield because they're going to have to go to the short passing game.
Yeah, I'm looking at the injury report of Don Best on the San Francisco 49ers, and I'm trying to see Trent Taylor, he's out. That was why he's a wide receiver. Offensive tackle Joe Staley, these are offensive players, and running back Jerick McKinnon. But these guys have been out for a while, so this isn't anything new. You seem to have...
The right tackle just got hurt last week, and so did the fullback. That's new.
What's the fullback's name? Do you know what his name is?
I can't pronounce it.
Oh.
But he's got an interesting name. I think it's some kind of a Czech name or something like that. But he's out for 4 to 6 weeks, and he's been a huge part of their offense. I don't care what Don Best says. I watch the games.
Well, I'm not disputing it. I'm trying to confirm it because
you don't need to confirm it. I'm telling you.
Okay. All right. Well, I believe you. You're usually right, so I believe you, Hank. But
well, when it comes to that stuff, I do the work all week, and I keep up with injuries all week. But I watched the games last week, and I saw those guys go out. And the fullback went out with 10 minutes left in the game, and he's got a serious leg injury that's going to keep him out 4 to 6 weeks, and he's a key element in their offense. His name is something like Mixilus or.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I get. I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah, Kyle C. U-S-Z. I can't pronounce.
Alphabet.
Yeah, I cannot pronounce that name. I'm sorry, but yes,
I could pronounce it if I was looking at it. It's Cekus or something like that.
Yeah, you're right. It's right there. He's got a knee injury. He's out. Gone. Okay. Well, you're right. Okay. Well, that's these are. Last week, I mean, they ran the ball.
I don't just say stuff to make it up, Jim. I mean, I know about injuries. I keep up with it, and I talk to these teams to find out what the seriousness of what the elements are. They're very concerned about that, and I'm telling you what they're going to have to do offensively to compensate.
Yeah, you're right. And they ran the ball very well last week against Cleveland. They've been running the ball very well. Kyle Shanahan knows what the hell he's doing. He knows how to. He knows how to do it.
They have all that speed. They got this guy,
Brea?
out of the backfield, Breda, who's very, very quick. And if he breaks loose, he can make big plays. But without the two tackles, who's going to open the holes?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. But you got the defense for the Rams have been very weak so far this year compared to a year ago, for sure.
Well, they've got big injuries too.
They do.
Their top linebacker is out, and they've got one of their receivers is out, and one of their corners is probably out. So they're not coming in at 100% either. And I didn't even mention Gurley, but even if he's in, he's not very good right now.
Now they've been hiding Gurley since last year. He's got a knee, and they don't ever say much about him, but they don't use him that much. They have injuries as well. Brandon Cooks, Talib, Patrick, Gurley, all these guys are on the injury. Clay Matthews is a big one because he's been doing.
That's who I talked about. That's who I mentioned, the linebacker.
Yeah,
Clay Matthews is not playing. And I'll tell you something else about the Rams. So their offensive line is showing its age, and the last 2 weeks they gave up 85 points.
Wow.
And including 55 to Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting, Gabe. I don't quite understand why they're favored by as much as they are, because that looks like a much tighter.
Well, the number's been dropping. It's down to 3.
3.5 right now. You got 3 minus 25, 3 minus 23. Pinnacle has 3.5 plus 04. Yeah. It's and the total's sitting at 50. So you're going to have some points because you got some defensive problems. Interesting game. Anything else you want to cover? Is there anything in horse racing going on this weekend?
No.
Nothing?
No, there's nothing in horse racing. Getting ready for Breeders' Cup, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. But, no, there's nothing horse racing-wise. I think, the big college game, of course, is Texas-Oklahoma. I think if you look it up, the last 8 or 9 games between those two teams have all been decided by 7 or fewer points.
Yeah, they have a good history, and the Texas coach has a great history as an underdog. So it's a lot of but Oklahoma looks pretty damn dynamic too.
Notre Dame, Southern Cal is a game that will generate a lot of interest. Notre Dame is very good right now. Southern Cal is going back to their original quarterback, and the other game, of course, is the LSU Florida game, and LSU is at home, and as I said, that quarterback is special for LSU.
The Penn State travels to Iowa. Penn State's undefeated. Iowa's lost one game. Penn State's a small favorite there. That's going to be a hell of a game.
That's going to be a game where there's very little scoring.
Yeah, and the total is dropped from 43.5 to 41.5. That's you're absolutely right. Now this is a good weekend. Good weekend for lots of exciting football and baseball. So it's great. This is a great time of year, and we got. I don't know if anybody's excited about it, but the NBA starts on the 22nd of October. So
I'll tell you that the game that's going to be very exciting to watch is going to be Kansas City. I don't know how good Mahomes is right now in terms of the ankle injury. He says he's okay, but he's not 100%. And he's only thrown one touchdown pass in his last 2 games. And not that Houston is any great shakes defensively, but their quarterback had a huge game last week. Granted, it was against a very poor team. He'll be, he's going up against a defense that isn't so great right now. They were gashed by Indianapolis last week. And so I'm anxious to see what Houston's quarterback does. He's playing very well right now.
Yeah, there are some teams last week, Hank, just to bring up some stats that I pull up. The teams that ran the ball 30-plus times or more and got over 150 yards rushing were actually 8-1 against the spread. It's pretty interesting stuff. The running game seems to be coming back a little bit. Injuries to quarterbacks, and the more if you can run the ball, control the clock, have a good offensive line play, that kind of goes back to our beginnings, Hank, when they said run the ball and play good defense and you'll win games. We got away from it, but I think we're going back in that direction.
Well, that's usually what works at the second half of the season. When you have bad weather or cold weather. But in Seattle right now, that game's waffled back and forth with the spread. There's always money for Cleveland. People have to wise up to Cleveland. They're not very good. They don't have a good offensive line. The quarterback is schizo, and their defense isn't very good. And they're facing a quarterback who has a perfect quarterback rating right now. Wilson has not thrown an interception yet this year. That's why his quarterback rating is so high. And they've done a good job. The coach has done a good job with that defense. And right now they're playing as well as any of the top echelon teams. And now they're on the road. Going in there, and they are now, I think, favored by 1.5 points.
Yeah, they are.
Cleveland opened as a 2.5 point favorite, which was a bad line.
And when that opened at 2.5, I immediately grabbed it. I took it.
Yeah.
That's sometimes why I like to bet on Sundays for the following weeks. Sometimes you get caught with your hand in a cookie jar, but a lot of times you get advantages to do that. It's Russell Wilson against Baker Mayfield. Who would you rather have?
No contest. And he has a receiver, by the way, who is beating everybody right now. And so he's got a good receiving partner who last week made an incredible play in the corner of the end zone, beating double coverage. And Wilson is really accurate and very sharp right now. And they've got a pretty good running back, too. So it sets up their play action. I just have a feeling that Cleveland, with their coaching and experience, and they could be in for a long afternoon. And it's only a matter of time. Now they're talking about getting rid of the wide receiver so they can get some offensive line help.
Wow. Really? Wow. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. Holy cow. All right, Hank.
Well, they don't use him very much.
Well,
he hasn't been throwing the ball to him, to speak of.
They're doubling him and getting it to Landry. That's what's happening. But then Baker can't seem to hit anybody at times. He just he's not very accurate, and his offensive line play has been horrible.
Well, he's also short, so he can't he can't see over the pass rush, and teams are getting a pass rush on him, and he's slow. He gets run down when he tries to roll out.
So he's kind of like me, short, slow, and can't throw the ball. That's just like.
But he's not old.
I was going to skip that part.
Well, so he has no excuse.
Well, thanks, Hank. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, Jim.
Thank
Try
you.
to speed it up a little bit.
Bye-bye. And thank you, everybody. We'll be back next week with more podcasts. And go to JimFeist.com for Hank's plays and mine. We've both been red hot, and we'd love to see you online and getting involved. Thank you.